friends! Hello! Welcome back to Amethyst Craftworks. I'm Samantha. How are you today? Surprise! We not just have one video this week, but 2 videos this week. I'm not 100% saying that we're back, baby, to 2 videos a week or anything like that. But it is sort of fitting for this video to be the second video for the week, because I'm going to talk to you today about some goals that I have set for myself. Personal goals, fiber arts goals, YouTube goals, so on and so forth. We're going to talk about some stuff and things. We're going to go over some projects, some things I'm working on, all of that, just to kind of give myself some accountability, to give you guys maybe some ideas, and then we can chit-chat and discuss it, and, in the comments and all that good stuff. So, if there's anything you want to discuss, leave me a comment down below. While you're down there, give me a like. So, some encouragement here, and subscribe if you haven't already. I would appreciate that as well. And with all that self-promotion completed, let's get into the actual subject of the video, which is my 2025 goals. Now, first of all, I've got, I would say, maybe a hefty set of goals this year. And I'm under no delusion that I'm going to complete all of them, or that, I'm going to stay on top of things 100% all year long, because I know myself, you guys know myself, you guys know me. Things kind of go pear-shaped pretty quickly for me, and so on and so forth. And so I will say, I'm going to do my darndest to keep up with these goals and to kind of keep the train rolling. Once we get started here, it'll make more sense. But I'm also not putting so much pressure on myself that I'm going to feel guilty if things kind of fall by the wayside, right? So, kind of disclaimer here at the top of the video. If things fall off midsummer or something, I'm not gonna beat myself up over it. It's gonna be fine. And if you have projects like this as well going on in your life, kind of year-long projects, things that you want to do, things that you want to learn, just be gentle on yourself, okay? Be kind to yourself, because it's fine, right? Tomorrow's always another day. You can always pick it back up when you want to. It's fine, right? It's fine. So, all of that said, I'm actually wearing this hoodie in particular for a very specific reason. And hold on, let me show you why. Hold on here, one sec. Can you see it? I hope you can. It's right on the middle of my back. I'm not sure if you could see it. If you could, great. If not, maybe I'll put a picture up over there as well maybe I'll put my own picture up over there of the concert that I went to a couple of years ago for Valo, the lead singer of the band called Him, that is sadly no longer together, but he released some music. He did a tour. I went with the besties, got this hoodie, and the symbol that's on the stage, it's on the back of my hoodie, is called a heartagram. And it means a lot to me, I will say. The symbol itself has always been something that I've kind of, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Not empathized, identified, that's it. I love it, right? I love the symbol, I love the way it looks, and so, I decided this year that I was going to do a year-long project with that symbol in mind, right? With the heartagram in mind. If you recall, in my movie marquee updates, which I'll link up there, I'm doing donations. I'm doing projects for other people for 2025 for this year. And I, honest to God, kind of was thinking to myself, like, I sort of miss having a year-long project of my own to work on. Like, I've had 3 years now to do the movie marquee where I've kept the project. I kind of miss it. So, let me pull some stuff out over here. So, I did some squares. We're gonna talk about it here. Let me find the first one. There's the first one. So I did some squares, and the inspiration for these squares was the Heartagram, of course, was a pattern by Women Walking on a Wire, which I will link to you down there as well. And it was also inspired a couple of different ways that we'll go through, but the first thing that inspired me really was a Instagram reel that I saw in my inane scrollings on Instagram that said, basically, every time you read a book, make a granny square in the colors of the cover. And that, like, exploded in my mind because I want to consume more books in 2025. That was goal number one. Goal number one, consume more books. And the reason why I'm not saying read more books is because, unfortunately, I have yet to figure out how to grow a second pair of hands and a second pair of eyeballs. Trust, I have tried. I haven't been successful yet. So I can't sit and read and sit and crochet at the same time. I also am one of those types of people that I can't just sit and watch TV. I can't just sit and watch a movie. I have to be crocheting. I have to be twiddling the yarn in some way, loom knitting, winding yarn into balls. Like, I have to be doing something with my hands. I can't just sit and watch. So just reading a book, like a physical book, where I am not actually crocheting is not something that works for me. No. So instead of reading books, I'm consuming them by listening to audiobooks. As if this is like some grand reveal of, like, you know, oh, I've got an idea that's totally unique to me. No. Like, audiobooks and crochet, they kind of go hand in hand, right? And so this year, I wanted to consume more books. I love books. I love reading. I love stories. But last year, I read a big old goose egg, not a single book. I didn't read any books last year. And so this year, I'm making a concerted effort to flip that on its head. And I'm using this project idea by making a granny square every time I read a book kind of as motivation to keep going, right? So, this first square that I have got here, oh, I am so proud of this one. This is green, gray, orange, and black. The heart up here is the heart is, you know, the top points here. They're rounded off, so it's a heartagram. This was for the first book that I read of the year. I will put a screenshot actually of the colors that the poster. No, I'm thinking of the movie marquee. The book cover as it looks on the app that I'm using, which is called Hoopla. If you have a library card and you are interested in audiobooks, Hoopla, Hoopla. Look it up in the App Store. I have an Android, so iTunes. Anyway, my boomer side is showing, so I'm going to put a screenshot over there of the first book that this is based on. It's the first book I read of 2025. It was Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. There is a reason why I started with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. In that, I can even show you because it's sitting right here. One of my favorite artists, did a concept album for a musical. There we go. There we go. Playing with Fire. That's based on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Kind of secondarily. It's actually based on a play written by, please forgive me if this is incorrect, Barbara Fields. One of those, who is one of the producers of this album's mother, right? And it's from Jimmy Harry and JC Chazé from NSYNC. We have talked about NSYNC and my love for them. So, long story short, I wanted context for this album. It's based on Frankenstein. It features Victor and Elizabeth and the creature. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just start things off with Frankenstein. Let's read it. I liked it. Well enough. Okay, I liked it well enough. We'll say that. But it gave me some context and it just like fueled a desire to just keep listening, to keep consuming books. And so that's what I did. Let's see. I don't remember the order that I read these in. Or do I? Maybe I kind of do. Kind of. So I think the next one is this one. This one is for a Goosebumps book. Now these, I was inspired to listen to these, to like re-consume these, because I read them as a child. I was very frightened by a lot of them. But John Wolfe has been doing a retrospective, like reading Goosebumps as an adult series. And I was like, I want in on that. I want to reread them. So this is the very first OG Goosebumps book. Welcome to Dead House. The cover has since been reimagined. So that's what the cover looks like in the app, and like new versions of the book have been published with. But that is the cover that I remember from being a kid. And so this is what I based, or this square is based on the original cover, right? So we've got Goosebumps #1, Granny Square. Then we've got this one. And make sure, apologies if I don't end up holding them correctly also, but I think we're good so far. So this one with the red and blues and white, this is for a Darcy Coates book. Now I will say, I am currently in the middle of reading a series that Darcy Coates wrote. I'm 100% obsessed with it. We'll get there. But this was the first book that I read of Darcy Coates, and I've heard a lot of good things about Darcy Coates. Altnauts has sang Darcy Coates praises for a long time now, and then another one of my favorite YouTubers named Gab Smolders talked about Darcy Coates and how she's like in love with all of her books and so on. And so I picked a book called Dead of Winter. I'll put the poster. I'm going to say that often, I'm sure. We'll put the cover over there so you can see the inspiration. I really liked this book. Darcy Coates, from what I am familiar enough from those two YouTubers with Darcy Coates, she writes kind of spooky haunting books. And so I was kind of expecting that with this one. That was not this at all. It was like a murder mystery. And I will say, you know, like, pat myself on the back. I figured out the twist and the ending, like halfway through the book is when I figured it out. And then it was very, very satisfying to have every single theory that I had like figured out throughout the book come true at the end. It was great. Dead of Winter, loved it. Really good book. Really good book. And this kind of spurred me on to keep reading Darcy Coates, which we are going to get to. However, I do have a year-long project already going for the movie marquee. And so I figured I'm making these squares for books that I'm reading. Why not make squares for the movie marquee movies? And so I made one for Follow That Bird. I will say it felt a little wrong, a little like weird to be making a heartagram in Big Bird colors. But I really like the way it turned out. It turned out pretty cute. I like it a lot. This is for the movie marquee. I'm going to continue to make movie marquee squares for this project as well for every month. And so we've got movies and books. And then one last thing, and then we'll talk about the rest of the books that I have read. This one you will have to forgive me. I have not woven in the ends on yet because this idea occurred to me today, this morning. And so I just finished this before I started videoing today. But another one of my goals was to keep up with a streak that I have got going on Duolingo. Now, I'm sure if you were familiar with Duolingo, it's been kind of like a meme on the internet and such, you know, for a while now. But it's a free app that you can use to learn a language. I myself, along with bestie Lauren, have been studying Japanese, which has been very challenging, but very fun. Like, please don't cringe here at me, okay? But we're gonna go with it, right? So, konnichiwa, Samantha-san desu, dozo yoroshiku. So, I am nowhere near fluent, but I'm on like a 65, 64 day streak where every day I do a lesson and I keep it going. And so I figured every lesson has a color attached to it. And I even took a screen recording of my Duolingo so you can see. Each section has a color associated with it. And so I'm going to make a color corresponding square every time I finish a section in Duolingo, right? So the first section up at the top was green. So I've got shades of green and black because the background is black. And, you know, it's just adding even more squares to the project. And I think at the very end, I'm going to make a blanket is the goal. And so I figured the more squares, the better. As well as it's now like a memory blanket. So I've got books that I'm reading, the movie marquee, the language sections. I've got quite a few to catch up on with the Duolingo. But, you know, like this is essentially like a memory blanket for 2025, which I think is a fabulous idea. It also gives me something to work on throughout the year that, you know, kind of fills the movie marquee void. I also love picking colors and like, I mean, this is right up my alley, right? It's kind of like the movie marquee. I like picking colors out of the movie posters and I like picking colors out of the book covers and then arranging them in a way that like makes sense and so on and so forth, right? Like it's fun. So my reward for finishing a book is getting to make the square. And so in January, I did 1, 2, 3. I I read 3 books so far. Then we've got, I think this one was next. This one is another Goosebumps book. This one is Stay Out of the Basement. It is book number 2 from the original Goosebumps series. The new cover is over there, but the original cover is now over there, and so hopefully you can see my inspiration for this square. They are fun to listen to. They're very short experiences when it comes to audiobooks. Both of them that I've listened to have been under 3 hours, like 2.5 hours or so. The author, R.L. Stine, he does do like a little foreword and, reader beware or listener beware, you're in for a scare. But the narrator, they've been so fabulous, and it takes me back to being a kid. It's very nostalgic, and they're easy to listen to, and I can kind of listen and multitask and whatnot. So they've been a blast to listen to. And so I think I'm gonna keep going and kind of use them as like palette cleansers in between other books. Like, I've got, there it is. Okay. So I did mention that when I talked about the first Darcy Coates book, that I then got into a series of Darcy Coates books. And so this one is actually sparkly. I don't know if you can kind of see. The navy is sparkly. This is for Voices in the Snow. The cover. I'll put the screenshot up over there so you can see it. Voices in the Snow. Now, when I listened to this book, it did have an ending that was sort of open-ended, but not enough that I was like, this is like leaving it open for a sequel. I kind of thought it left it open enough for you to sort of interpret where the story goes afterwards. So I didn't immediately realize that this Voices in the Snow was a series. And then, I was telling about Bestie, I was talking about the book with Bestie Lauren, and, she was like, it's a shame there aren't other books in that series, because you really like that one. And I was like, yeah, it is kind of a shame, isn't it? Mind blown. Suddenly I'm like Googling, and I realize there's 4 books in a series that has finished. Like, it has a finished story arc to it with the same characters, and I was so excited. So I immediately started reading the second one. Now, hold on. Where did it go? I gotta grab it down here. So I've got a reading journal, right? I've also been journaling the books as I've been reading them. Can show you, like, filling in the pages as I go, as I'm reading things. And I need to reference my journal so I get these titles right. So, this book is the second in the series. It is called Secrets in the Dark. I'll put the cover over there so you can see. I think this one might be one of my favorites that I have made thus far. This color combo is fabulous. So I had that, and then keep in mind, this is still in January. Then we've got, where are we here? I started, let's see. So those, okay. Thank goodness for this reading journal, right? So in January, I finished 6 books. 2 Goosebumps books, Frankenstein, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, okay. So Frankenstein, 2 Goosebumps books, and then 3 Darcy Coates books. And then I started February by listening to an H.P. Lovecraft story called The Shadow over Innsmouth. And I will put the book cover up over there so you can see. This one also, I am absolutely in love with these kind of shades of green currently, like mossy, olivey, gray greens. These are my cup of tea currently. So this one turned out quite nice as well. So this is The Shadow over Innsmouth, which I really liked. It also was quite a short story. It was also like 2 hours long or so. I do have other H.P. Lovecraft books, like an entire collection of his works in my favorites on Hoopla. We'll get around to that eventually because those are like 25 hours long as opposed to the single stories like The Shadow over Innsmouth that's like 2 hours. So there's that. But then the most recent book that I finished, so this one I finished on February 7th, which was this past Friday. So for you, that was like a week ago or something, was this book, which was the third book in the Voices in the Snow, which is actually called Black Winter. It's called the Black Winter series. It's called Whispers in the Mist. I finished this one for that book cover, and that's where we are currently with this project. Now, again, like books, I was serious about consuming more books. I wanted to consume more books, so I got myself a reading journal. Every time I start a book, I start a section here. I've been using different colored pens in the book and like writing out what I like, what I don't like, quotes and words that I liked in the book, and so on and so forth. Like, I was serious. I wanted to consume more books. So I've got a journal, and it also has helped considerably in keeping the names of the books in like in line in my brain, because some of them I remember quite well, and then some of them I don't remember quite well. And so, if you're at all interested, I will say Dead of Winter, A+, really loved it. The Black Winter series, starting with Voices in the Snow, A++++++. Really love it. The two main characters, Claire and Doran, have my heart. I absolutely love them. The Goosebumps books are fun. I mean, H.P. Lovecraft, can you call his books fun? I guess so. I just really enjoy, like, Cthulhu and the Cthulhu mythos and all that stuff. So regardless of that, Darcy Coates is like slowly becoming my favorite author, I will just say. And so that was part one of my goals, was consume more books. Number two was to learn some new fiber artsy stuff. Okay, so on to goal number two. If you will recall from my movie marquee shenanigans, I said in, I think, the first video for January that I was going to use the movie marquee as inspiration and motivation to learn knitting with needles and Tunisian crochet. That I could make a Tunisian scarf and a knitted hat or something and donate them, right? And you know, those are always like, oh yeah, sure. I mean, I had made a goals video in 2023 and said I wanted to learn how to knit and Tunisian crochet and then never did. So it's very easy to say, yeah, sure. You want to learn? Okay, great. But I am learning. I promise you. I'm learning. I'm practicing. I am taking it seriously. Okay? So this little garter stitch swatch, it's even on my needles still. The needles were from Heather. The yarn is also from Heather. It is a Bernat Super Value. It is called Fresh Lilacs. It is purple and green. So I'm sure you can figure out why she sent it to me. But this swatch here is a good old swatch of some needle knitting that I have been practicing on since the beginning of January, really. I'll sit and do a couple of rows on it and then put it down for a little bit, and then I'll pick it back up again and put another couple of rows on it. It is just a swatch. I think I'm going to end up frogging it. Likely. And the reason is because I love this yarn. I love the colors in this yarn. Like, it is olivey green, which I have just recently mentioned is the color. Like, I'm super into this color at the moment. So, olivey green and like darker purples and hair. That's either a me hair or a Ralphie hair. Anyway, I love this yarn, but I don't think I'm going to do anything necessarily with this specific swatch. And so I might, you know, knit until the whole skein is complete and then frog it and do something else with the yarn. But this was really mostly just to prove to myself that I could do it, that I could pick up some needles and do it. I knit, is it English style where you hold the yarn in your right hand? Yes, I think continental is when you hold in your left. Or maybe I have that backwards. Either way, I hold my yarn in my right hand. And I like zone out and have really enjoyed the garter stitch. I love the way it looks. I love that it doesn't curl. You know, I'm familiar enough with the garter stitch when it comes to loom knitting that it really honestly helped me with needle knitting. I knew from the get-go that garter stitch doesn't curl. And I knew like how garter stitch is supposed to look from loom knitting. So I knew what I was looking for when it came to needle knitting garter stitch. And I like it. I like knitting a lot. I think I want to make a hat first, or maybe a scarf first. Maybe not with this yarn. I don't have enough yarn in this colorway left over to make a full scarf. So we might consider some other option for a scarf, but I did it. It's got relatively straight sides. Like, let me hold it with the circulars kind of straight. It's got straight sides. It's not wibbly wobbly. It's fairly well tensioned and, like, you know, it looks great, I think. I don't really have a whole lot of frame of reference, but I liked it a lot. And so I used Fiber Spider's tutorials, which again I'll put down below. One night in January, I was like, you know what? Let's make good on one of those goals here. And I just sat down with some needles that Heather had sent to me and Fiber Spider's tutorials on how to cast on, long tail cast on, how to knit stitch, how to garter stitch. And I just started. He has shown me the way so much, Fiber Spider has, including showing me the way when it comes to Tunisian crochet. Now this little swatch is like a quilt for a Barbie or something, right? All I wanted to do was make sure that I could do it, right? This is, again, a little swatch. It did turn into like a blanket, a blanket for a doll or maybe like a little kitten or something. But this is Tunisian crochet, mostly. The navy border is just regular single crochets. But the squares inside, I used two different colors of yarn. I used an orange, a solid orange, and then this is, where are we here? I know it's sitting here. Is this yarn that has seen better days from Hirschner's. It's called Halloween Party. Halloween Worsted 8 Sparkle Halloween Party. The green and then the orange and the purple. This is this yarn. And I just followed a tutorial of Fiber Spiders for, I think is it called Entrelac? Entrelac style Tunisian crochet. It's all just the Tunisian simple stitch, and I put a border on it because this curls. Tunisian crochet curls. It curls in general. The knit stitch or the basic simple stitch curls a lot from what I could tell from my own swatch. So I put a little border on it just to make sure it would help with the curling, and it does. Like, it absolutely does. the back looks quite nice. Like, this is a nice little swatch. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it is definitely, might get donated to my nieces or something in case one of their Barbie dolls needs a blankie or something. I don't know. But regardless of that, I made good, right? We learned how to knit, like, very beginner learned how to knit. And we also very beginner learned Tunisian crochet. And so those were the next set of goals that I was ready to discuss here with you today. I'm in between all these clips. I like have to go run and hunt these things down because they're kind of scattered across my house, like where I've been sitting and working on them and stuff. So this last thing, I think this is the last thing that we're going to talk about today because this is already going to be a monstrous video, right? But I saw in Heather's Facebook group, I'm pretty sure, a post from Patricia. Hi, Patricia. Where she had posted her, I think it was for last year, for 2024, a temperature project that she had made in the form of a snake. This, like, lit up something in my brain because I've been wanting to make an amigurumi snake for a very long time. And 2025 is also a year that I was playing around with the idea of doing a temperature blanket or some kind of temperature project. And I saw Patricia's post and was like, that is the cutest thing. I want to do that. And then 2, I realized 2025 is the year of the snake. And so it was just like kismet. I had to. And so we are working on a 2025 temperature snake. And I'm going to show you my progress with him and so on. But I'm first going to show you my first attempts with the pattern. So the pattern itself is from Ribbler. That's not the user, that's the platform. I can't remember off the top of my head the name of the designer, so I will just link you to it down below. It's for a pretzel snake, where you turn your little snake into a pretzel, right? Well, I don't want to make a pretzel. I just wanted to make a snake. So I picked that pattern because Joann's, we're not even going to go there with Joann's, but basically Joann sends you a freebie claim for Ribbler if you spend $25 on yarn. And so I got a free pattern from Ribbler and Joann's for the pretzel snake, and then I've just decided to use him as my inspiration for my temperature blanket snake. Temperature snake, my not blanket snake temperature project, right? Anyway, so this was my first try. He's quite long, and I was again using the Halloween party yarn along double-stranded along with black. I was using a much smaller hook than the pattern calls for because the pattern calls for like blanket yarn. So I was just trying to see what a snake would look like, and look at him. I mean, look at how cute he is, right? He's absolutely adorable. We love this little snake. He's my little friend. I love him a lot. But I was trying to figure out how big a snake would be just using the same pattern, but with smaller yarn and a smaller hook. And he turned out cute. I mean, I love him. But I wanted something bigger, right? So then I took the same pattern, and I will link you to it down below in the description. It is a video from Complicated Knots. I adore Complicated Knots, let me just say. Her series with Pokemon is chef's kiss. It is one of my favorites to watch. Currently, like Crochet and Pokemon, yes please. Video games and Crochet, yes please. I adore her. She's so funny and so cute and talented and yada yada. Anyway, She put out a video like a couple of years ago explaining how to double a pattern for an amigurumi. So you double the stitch pattern, the stitch count, as well as the row count to essentially take a small pattern and turn it big. There we go. He's right side up now. So this pattern is this pattern, which is the pretzel snake pattern, but I just mathed up the stitch counts and the row counts and so on to make a bigger dude without having to use bigger yarn or a bigger hook. This is still the same hook size and the double-stranded worsted weight yarn, because I wanted to use up yarn that I've got. I didn't want to buy a ton of new yarn. I didn't want to buy like 10 colors of yarn to make an amigurumi with. One of my, I guess maybe a tertiary goal, like goal 3A, is to use up yarn that I've got, to prioritize using up yarn that I've got. I'm not banning myself from buying yarn, but to prioritize using up yarn that I have. So I will link you to Complicated Knots video down below that explains how to do this, because this pattern is still this pattern. I did nothing to the pattern except doubled it in a way that Complicated Knots explained, right? So it's the same pattern, it's not my pattern, but I made a much larger snake friend. He's equally as cute. He's a little bit stubby because I only did 37 rounds of color changes. So from here to here is 37 rounds. And there's a reason why I did 37, but I'll explain that in a moment. But he's the same pattern, just biggened and biggened. And I mean, come on. Look at this dude. He's too cute, right? There we go. He's just adorable. We love him. I love snakes in general. So this was like a no-brainer project for me. So this dude is 37 rows for the body. So from the first color change, which is right here, to the last color change down here, not counting the decreases for the tail or the sides of the head. This is 37 rounds of random color changes that I did just to practice changing colors. And I did 37 rounds because he is 1/10 the size of a 365 row long snake body, right? So he is, gosh, what did I measure him at? I don't think I have a measuring tape in here. I don't think I do. But I measured his body and then multiplied it by 10. And basically him, but with a row for every day of the year, is going to be like 9.5 feet long. And that's my project, right? So he was practice and he was practice. And then we started on the actual temperature snake. Now, he is even bigger than the biggin, even though I did nothing to make this one bigger. I didn't like edit the pattern or anything. The only thing that I did was I used 2 strands of thicker yarn with the same hook, the same pattern, and he just turned out massive. Like, even bigger. And that's okay. I'm 100% okay with that. This is the beginnings to my temperature snake now. I love him. This is a massive undertaking. I know this already. I also know that this is part of January. I think I got maybe 2 weeks into January, and then I didn't stop working on it. I just paused working on it. But, okay, I know this is going to be a massive project, but I kind of like it because every row is 22 stitches and every row is double-stranded, right? Let's hold it this way. Double-stranded, which represents the low temperature and the high temperature, one color each. For the Pittsburgh was the Pittsburgh International Airport, I think, is where the official weather for my area is taken from. And I'm using this range of colors. There you go. You can see. I just made this little template on Photoshop on my computer and then colored it in with all the various colors of yarn that I'm using. I even put down here the brown because I picked brown for the snake head and then the tail whenever I get to that in December of this year. I picked brown, one, because brown is the snake color, and two, the color for, what is it, the Pantone color of the year is called Mocha Mousse, I think. Very similar color to these two strands here. So I even am doing the Pantone color of the year for 2025 in here. And so I've got, you know, a decent section started here, but each row is very quick to do, and I don't mind doing like a big block of them at once. In fact, I kind of prefer that. So I just took like a random calendar off of the internet somewhere, and then I've just been recording the high and low temperature each day and then what colors those correspond to, right? So on, let's go with January 22nd, okay? Oh, that was a really cold one. So the high temperature was 14. The high temperature was 14 degrees Fahrenheit. And the low temperature, -7. And so that corresponds to navy blue for the high and then white for the low. And then I haven't, I picked a color or a day that I didn't get to yet. But anyway, those two colors would then be strung together, and I think you understand what I am talking about. So this is another goal of mine, to keep my little Snick-a-Snake going. He's even got a two-tone tongue. Like, the colors are super similar. It's a hot pink and like a hot coral color. But I even did his snake two-toned, or the tongue two-toned. His body, the brown is two-toned. I think they're both a Craft Smart, but not Craft Smart. Whatever Craft Smart is currently. Loops and Threads Soft Classic, I think. And then the colors of the body are just all sort of random colors that I have either left over from other projects, but they're in full skeins. Like, I have the project bag sitting down there. So this is one of the colors of the snake body. Coffee. This is the other snake body. Dark taupe. And then, like, you know, all the other colors are like full skeins. Like, here's one that's also a soft classic, Loops and Threads. This is the color, the navy color, called Navy. Surprising. But they were all full skeins that I had, and, you know, they all correspond with the temperature. And if you're familiar with temperature blankets, then you know what I'm talking about here. So this is another goal of mine. And I think that's enough goals for right now. You know, learning a language and reading more books and making squares for the movie marquee, and then learning new forms of fiber arts and making a snake. And yeah, like, I was very inspired at the beginning of the year. I will just say that. I was inspired to learn and do and like create and all this stuff. And so I'm hoping that carries me through for the rest of the year. But like I also said at the beginning, I'm not so delusional to think that I'm not going to hit a slump, or I'm not going to hit a month where, oh, I don't feel like working on my snake, or I don't feel like listening to a book, or, you know, if you're like me, I'm kind of fickle when it comes to things like that. And so, you know, you either have to push past it or just accept it as part of your personality and like work around it, figure out ways to kind of, you know, mitigate the damage, shall we say. And so, yeah, for now, those are my goals. I wanted to prove to you that I'm working on them. I wanted to show off the book squares, the Heartagram squares. If you're at all interested in like a book review every month on what I have made, like showing off to you the squares that I have made for that month, for the books that I have read, and for the language sections that I have finished, let me know. That might be a fun kind of monthly check-in video to do. But regardless of that, thank you so much for joining me here today. I appreciate it so very much. Hopefully, fingers crossed, this is the start to maybe some more YouTube-related goals that I didn't even talk about, but I would really love to get back to doing 2 videos a week. We'll see. Fingers crossed. Who knows? You know, next week I could be like, I don't feel like doing anything. So there is that as well. But anyway, thank you for joining me. Thank you for liking and subscribing and commenting and all that good stuff. And when I have an update on any of these projects, I will see you then. Take care. Goodbye.